Hello again. I just wanted to make another video of my experience having a baby here in Kodiak. Kodiak is my husband's first station after he got out of boot camp, and when I found out we were coming to an island in Alaska, I was like, there is no way I'm going to have a baby there. For one, what if something goes wrong? I don't want to be stuck on an island and not be able to get the help I need. And for two, I was like, it's Alaska, so I also don't want to be at home and go into labor and then it's a snowstorm outside and I can't drive to the hospital, or I get stuck having a birth by myself at home. There were so many thoughts and fears that went through my head. But once we got here, we moved here in August, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm ready for a baby and I'd like one soon, but I'm only going to have one if we can have them before the winter season. So if I didn't get pregnant, and so that the baby would come anytime before October time frame, I was just gonna be like, okay, we'll call it quits until the baby would be born in the springtime again, because I did not want to risk having a baby in the winter months and being stuck at home with a snowstorm. Maybe it was a crazy fear because in Kodiak specifically, the snow does not get that bad here, so there would very rarely be a chance that I couldn't make it to the hospital or something like that would happen. But never being to Alaska before, those were my thoughts and stipulations on having a child here. So we started trying for a baby, and I got pregnant fairly soon. So we found out the due date would be August 8th, and I was super excited. And it was just a really exciting time. But in case you have any fears, like I did, maybe irrational fears, but fears of having a baby on an island in Alaska, it was completely okay. It's more than okay. It was great. And honestly, if we are here long enough, I would love to have my second baby here before we leave, because I had such a good experience. But all right, I will just get into it. So the due date was August 8th. August 8th came and went. Eventually, the doctors, nurses, whoever decided, doctors I guess, decided that I needed to be induced. And because it is an island, they don't like to go past 41 weeks, just because after 41 weeks there's, risk of more problems happening. So they start the induction at 41 weeks. So August 8th came and went, and the whole week came and went. So that Friday, we determined I needed to go get induced. Ron's, my husband's parents, actually came up Thursday thinking the baby would already be here. It wasn't here yet, but they came up Thursday, so we picked them up from the airport, and they were able to drop us off at the hospital. Friday morning, 8 a.m., I went in. I hadn't had any contractions, no pain, nothing prior to when I went in the hospital. Actually, I didn't have any contractions or anything, but my water did break that morning at 6 a.m., but I was like, I have an appointment to go to the hospital at 8, so we'll just wait it out. It'll be fine. I can go in for my appointment at 8. I don't need to go in earlier just because my water broke. So I went in, and it was fine. Because it's 2020, COVID stuff, you go in and you had to get COVID. I had to get COVID tested before I went into the hospital. So they COVID tested me, and I went up to the labor and delivery unit, which the whole hospital is super small, but the labor and delivery unit, and they put me in a special room. They hooked me up to one of those belly bands so they can see if I was having any contractions or not. And I was just sort of in there waiting until the COVID test came back to see if it was positive or negative. Eventually, maybe 2 hours later, it came back and it was negative. So they moved me out of this special room and into just one of the regular labor and delivery rooms. And yeah, they started me on the induction process. Things got moving along. I got the epidural at 10 o'clock at night-ish. I started pushing at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, and 8:31, little Daniel William Kuhn came out, and we loved him dearly. We do love him dearly. And so he came out, and I was able to nurse him, and breastfeed him. He latched on. It went well, but I guess the doctors noticed he was breathing a little funny, which I did have a fever during the last hour or two of labor. So I guess that fever transferred onto Daniel, and there was a little bit of infection going on, with him, whatever. So he was breathing heavier, and I didn't notice it, probably just because I was in the moment just enjoying my new baby. But I guess the doctors obviously noticed it, and I was able to stay with Daniel until 10:30ish. He was born at 8:30. They took him over to the nursery at 10:30 and put him on oxygen, and just monitored him. They were just watching him really closely because his breathing was really labored. At 1:30, they came to my room. Well, I was in and out of visiting Daniel over in the nursery, but at 1:30, they came over and they were like, "We might need to have you medevac to Anchorage. We are an island and we want to take precautions, but they're like, we might need to medevac you, but we're trying to hold off because he seems like he's okay. So we're going to hold off for now." And so they held off. They just kept monitoring him, checking things out. They're like, because of his condition, you'll need to be here till at least Monday. I gave birth on Saturday, and they're like, at the earliest, you'll go home Monday because of his little bit of complications here. And then, so 1:30, and then 3 o'clock, they determined that, yeah, we need to send you to Anchorage. So that was pretty devastating news. I mean, I just had a baby at 8:30 in the morning, and now, 4, 5, 7 hours later, you're telling me I need to get on a plane, which, side note, I absolutely hate flying. I hate flying with passion. I don't know why, but I do not enjoy anything about flying. So for one, I was afraid that I was going to have to fly. Well, I did need to fly because I'm not going to send my child without me. And so, I don't know, they told us that. And luckily, we were trying to figure things out because how can we get Ron and I over there? Okay, when they told us backtrack. When they told us that Daniel needs to go to Anchorage, he wasn't doing bad, but they didn't want him to get worse and then them not be able to do anything for him. He could have, if he stayed the way he was, it was fine. It would have been all good. But because we were on an island, they didn't want him to get worse, and then, they don't have any way to take care of him there. So in case he got worse, that's why they wanted us to go to Anchorage. And when a nurse and a doctor came in and told us that, we needed to go to Anchorage, and I was bummed. I was sad. I sat there and I was like, oh no. And then they bring on the news that only Ron or I can go to Anchorage. There's only spot for one other person on the medical plane. And when I heard that, I just started bawling. I was like, I just had a baby, and now Ron and I are going to have to be separated? Are you kidding me? Only one of us can go to Anchorage with him, and the other one's going to have to stay here, in the hospital? So immediately, we just started calling Ron's family, which had flown into Kodiak to come, see their baby. And we called them and we're like, I don't have time to explain everything right now, but Daniel needs to go to Anchorage, and I need you to pack a bag for both of us because at this point, we don't know which one of us is going. We hadn't decided that yet. And so because of this, Ron's on the phone with TRICARE, and he was just, trying to figure out, will they cover a flight for one of us? If the other one goes with Daniel, on how to do it. And Ron's on the phone, and obviously he's, emotional and whatnot because we just had a baby and now we got to fly off this island. And the doctor is hears him on the phone trying to talk to these insurance people or whoever he was talking to. I don't really remember, but the doctor's like, give me the phone. And she gets on the phone and she's just like, these people both need to end up in Anchorage. I don't care how it happens, but TRICARE needs to cover mom and dad going to Anchorage. And it was just so cool to see this doctor like sticking up for us and just like, I don't know, telling this lady on the phone that this needs to happen. Both mom and dad need to go to Anchorage. We're not leaving one of them here in Kodiak and the other one in Anchorage. So, I don't know. They talk on the phone, and I don't know if that ever resolved anything or not. But I was just so thankful that she was willing to, like, stick up for us. And, yeah, it was just cool that, like, she wanted the best for us. So then I guess some of the nurses started telling the social worker, like, hey, when's the nearest flight leaving Kodiak? Because with COVID, you know, flights are at half capacity, so flights are hit or miss to get off of this island. And, you know, you can wait sometimes a week and there won't be any open seats on a flight. So our original thought was, okay, we will send Ron with Daniel on the medical flight, and then TRICARE should have to pay for me to fly on a commercial flight because baby needs me, he needs my milk. So if Ron goes with Daniel, then TRICARE is going to have to pay for me to go over, right? I mean, that's the way it should be. But it turns out they weren't going to pay for me, and so that was a little frustrating. So when they found out they weren't going to pay for me, or actually, go back. When that was the plan, we were like, okay, if Ron's going with Daniel and I'm staying here in this hospital, I don't want to be here alone. So because of COVID, you know, that great thing of COVID of 2020, only one person was allowed in the hospital. So obviously that was Ron. But because Ron was going to leave with Daniel, the nurses and doctors at Kodiak let Ron's mom come into the hospital because they didn't want me to be there alone either, because they are such great people there. They really are. So we called Ron's mom and we're like, hey, can you come stay with me so that Ron can go with Daniel to Anchorage? And we were just going to try to get me a flight at the soonest available time we could, but we didn't really know when that was going to be. So I guess behind the scenes, one of the nurses had talked to the social worker, and the social worker was trying to get things figured out, seeing when she could get a flight. And there was actually a flight. This was, you know, we found out at 3 o'clock that we need to go to Anchorage. There was a flight leaving at like 5:15 that night, and there was like 2 seats left on it. So the social worker actually just booked the flight, booked the ticket, paid for it with her own money, and then told the nurses, and the nurses told us, like, hey, we got you a flight, a ticket booked on a commercial flight, so you're good to go. You're leaving at 5:15, so I suggest you leave like right now. Go pack a bag and go to your flight, because you don't got much time. But it was just incredible. Like, that wouldn't have happened anywhere else. That the social worker would pay, just be like, I know how bad they want to go over to Anchorage, and I know how hard a flight to Anchorage is to catch right now. So I'm just going to pay for your ticket, and you can just pay me back whenever you get back, whenever things settle down. It's completely fine. Like, I don't feel like a social worker working anywhere else would have done that. That's that great community feel here in Kodiak. The one thing I do love about it here. So it was just so great. And then, so sometime after that, Daniel's now 5 months, so I should have made this video sooner. But from my memory, we decided, somehow we figured out TRICARE wasn't going to pay for the commercial flight. So we decided I would go with Daniel. Ron would take the commercial flight. So at 4:30ish, so as soon as we found out Ron was getting the flight at 5:30, he left. He called his dad, said, come pick me up and take me to the airport. So his dad came, picked him up. They went to the house. He grabbed a few more things for his suitcase, and he went to the airport, and off he was, checked in, whatever. So at 4:30, the medevac team from Anchorage, because we don't have anybody here that flies out. The people from Anchorage flew in here, and they got here, and at 4:30, they all come in, and Daniel gets put in this little incubator thing, and about 4:30, I leave with, it was a pilot, co-pilot, 2 nurses, and then myself, or doctors. I don't know if there were nurses or doctors. But we all leave, so I sit in the front seat of the ambulance. They're in the back with Daniel, taking care of him. We get to the airport. It's this tiny, tiny little plane, and I make them well aware that I hate flying and that I was scared to get in this plane. And they're like, oh, it flies just like a commercial flight. You won't even know you're in a little plane. I was like, I don't even like commercial flights. This whole experience is terrifying for me. But you do what you do for your kid, right? So we take off. And so we left at 5 o'clock. And literally 5 minutes later, Ron takes off at we probably left at 5:05. And then Ron's flight left at 5:15. It's that was totally a God thing, because we had been praying and praying and praying that something would work out. And unless you're here or from here, that is completely amazing that we both left the runway within maximum of 15 minutes of each other. It was really less time than that. That's insane, and the Lord was certainly working there, because that is just crazy that the flights worked out that perfectly. We had so many people praying for us, and we were praying, and it was just so cool that we got to leave. And it was all thanks to the nurses, the doctors, and that lovely social worker who just paid for our ticket, that we were able to leave and both leave that night together. So then I arrive in Anchorage, and we both arrive in Anchorage at 6 o'clock. It's only a 45 or 50 minute flight from Kodiak to Anchorage. So I arrive in Anchorage, and we get in another ambulance, and we're taken to the hospital. We go to the NICU. They get Daniel all settled in. I get settled in. Ron, after he got to the airport, the main airport, he found a rental car facility, picked up a rental car, and then he came straight to the hospital as well. And then, later that night, because of COVID, you were only allowed outside of the hospital doors once in a day, because they didn't want you coming in and out and in and out and in and out with COVID stuff. So you could leave once, and then you come back in, and then that's it. You can't leave again for the day. Well, if you leave again, you're not allowed back in. You got one pass, and that was it. So 11 o'clock that night, Ron left, and he went to go get, I think we had Wendy's for dinner. He went and got Wendy's, picked up a few other things so we could have lunches and not have to leave the facility, because I didn't want to leave Daniel. Obviously, he's my brand new baby. So, yeah. So Ron went and picked up some dinner for us at 11 o'clock at night, and then we were in the hospital for the next few days, and we were able to get released Thursday. Ron's parents were able to get their flights changed, so they were able to come to Anchorage on Thursday, and we could spend 3 days together. We were supposed to have the whole week together, but at least we got to spend 3 days together. So, I don't know. I guess my story could scare people, because I did have to leave the island for an emergency, but I just find it really encouraging how much the nurses and doctors and the social workers and everybody at the Kodiak Hospital really worked together to get things done so that we were able to go to Anchorage. And Daniel ended up being fine. They think he had pneumonia, and so they just put him on a round of antibiotics, and he was able to get over it pretty quickly. He was fine by this. He was born the 15th of August. By the 16th, he was already taken off of oxygen. He was breastfeeding again. He was pretty much fine. And So, I mean, in all reality, he probably could have stayed in Kodiak and it would have been fine. But just in case something went downhill, they didn't want him to be on an island and then not have the care he needed. So I am very thankful they sent us over to Anchorage. And yeah, after we got discharged, it was a very full weekend. I just had a baby 5-6 days ago, but we wanted to make the most of being in Anchorage. So we visited Wasilla, we went to Whittier, we went on a Portage Glacier boat tour. So I like to say Daniel rode a boat, a plane, a medical plane, an ambulance, and a car. I think that's all within his first week of life. Pretty crazy, pretty interesting story, and that's why I wanted to just talk about it a little bit. So yeah, if you ever get the chance to come to Kodiak, have a kid here. I don't know. I don't know how to end this, but yeah, it was just a really great experience. And one thing I did want to say about my hospital experience is if you have a baby in Kodiak, you're likely the only one in the labor and delivery unit because, I mean, there's not that many people here. So you're probably the only one having a baby. So because of that, you get one-on-one attention. Anything you need, that nurse is there just for you. So you need something, she's in there within a few seconds. Like, you want her to hang out in there and just talk to you for a while, she'll do that. Like, once the night nurse came on for her shift, like they switched shifts at 7 o'clock or whatever, whenever my night nurse came in, she just sat in there, brought a chair up to my bed and just introduced herself, talked about herself a little bit, which was great. I mean, she was in there for like maybe an hour or two, and my contractions weren't that bad at that point. My contractions didn't get super bad until like 9 o'clock at night or something like that. So, I mean, I was thankful for her company, and it was just a really good experience, really cool experience. And like I said in the beginning, if I'm here long enough to have my second kid here, I would love to have my second kid in this hospital. Because, I get spoiled in Kodiak, and then the Anchorage NICU was fantastic. I can't say anything bad about them. But coming from a hospital where you're getting that personalized attention and you're literally the only one that nurse is tending to having a nurse tending to a few people, it's a bit of a difference. So, I mean, you don't get that immediate care. They were still excellent. I can't say anything bad about them, but Kodiak was just really, really fantastic. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. And now Daniel is 5 months old as of 2 days ago, and he's 27 inches long and growing, and 19 pounds almost already. So yeah, we love him a lot, and he has such a cool birth story. It is so cool to see the Lord's hand in it, for sure. But okay, thanks for listening, and I hope I encouraged you if you get the chance to have a baby here in Kodiak. Okay, bye. I'm going to insert a few pictures of Daniel here. He was born August 15th, 2020 at 8:31 a.m. He was 22 inches long and 7 pounds, 14 ounces.